All right. What is going on? Welcome. It's Darian here. Another episode 8 of Asset Creators. Today we're going to be talking about the rent versus own trap and why building on LinkedIn only is a dangerous game. And I want to clarify here that when I talk about LinkedIn only, one sec, let me just make sure that the screen's going okay. There we go. So when I talk about LinkedIn only, you can see that I have it in all capitals. And there's a reason for that, because I'm not saying to not build on LinkedIn, obviously, right? You know, I'm doing these lives on LinkedIn. We're all creating content, gaining followers, hopefully getting leads, getting clients, and all of those things. So I'm not saying do not build on LinkedIn. The trap is, and the dangerous game is, when you try to build on LinkedIn only, and you don't take people off LinkedIn to a place you owned. I'm going to get into all of that, what the trap is, the dangerous game, and all of that stuff. But I just want to be clear on that, because some of you might be looking at this being like, well, you're building on LinkedIn. Why wouldn't we want to be building on LinkedIn? And that's why we want to be building on LinkedIn, but also the next step, right? Now, when we talk about this rent versus own trap, I have a story that's really relevant because this just happened to a guy I know. And I really wanted to share it because I think it'll drive this concept home just into your brain a little bit easier than me just like telling you what rented versus owned means first. So he lost his 20K follower account. So let me zoom in a little bit. So Dan runs a coaching program that joined last September. So Dan is a guy, he's a coach, and he helps people build up their school community and to get leads for their coaching program. So he runs a coaching program doing that. I joined it last September. And while I was in the program, he was running meta ads to grow his Instagram account. He was also running ads to grow his following, or it's not just grow his following, grow his community as well. So some of his ads were going directly to his school community, and then some of them were going to Instagram to get followers and things like that. Okay. So after building his account to 20K followers, and he wasn't always running ads from what he told me he was creating organic content for years as well, right? He just got banned 2 weeks ago. And so he lost his whole account. He lost 20K followers, all of his posts for years, content for years, the followers, of course, the content, everything, and also just the time, right? And the energy and the effort. And when he lost it, obviously he tried to get it back. He contacted Meta, and he got no word about why they got rid of his account and deleted his account. He had no explanation. He didn't know. And so this is a story that's super relevant to what we're talking about today, because I think it's so important for you to understand that he was building on rented land, right? Social media is rented land. They can get rid of your account at any moment. And the people who only build there are the ones who aren't building assets, and they're also the ones who end up getting screwed at some point. And so the good news for Dan is he was driving traffic to his free school community as well. So he has a bunch of people in his free community, a bunch of leads and stuff like that. But also, he was also driving them to his email list as well. So Dan lost his 20K followers, but he still has his school community and he still has his email list, which is really important and what we're going to really get into today. Because it's just really important to understand that you need to be building things that you pushing people to a place that you own where they can't just get rid of it. You can't just be lost, left in the dust. LinkedIn deletes your account, or wherever you build. YouTube, right? YouTube is technically social media as well, even though it's kind of a search engine as well. But you got to understand that any moment they can get rid of your account. And if you're not building something you own on the side and just taking that traffic from social media to a place you own, eventually it will bite you in the butt. But it's not even just about losing your audience, because you know what? You might lose your account, or you might never lose your account. But there's so many more benefits to having your own email list in a place you own, besides just, having the followers on social media. They're warmer, they're easier to sell to and buy. A lot of these things that you can control the environment, which is what we're going to get into a little bit more here as well. But just wanted to start with that story to really drive it home that Luckily, he was driving traffic to a place he owned. But when we're talking about this rented land, he just lost his account. And this just happened 2 weeks ago, right? And so it's gone. So really important to understand that that's the difference between the rented and the owned. And we're going to get even more into it right now. So these are just a couple examples, but rented space typically is any social media platform. Okay. This goes from YouTube, which is a search engine, but it's still social media in a sense, to Instagram, LinkedIn, anything you could think of, paid ads, or online stores. So online stores could be, let's say you're an author of a book, right? And yeah, you might have a LinkedIn account or whatever, but most of your sales come from Amazon or wherever, right? Well, if Amazon one day decides to stop selling your book, you're screwed, right? Like, what are you going to do if they do that? That's why it's a rented space. You don't own Amazon. You don't control if they keep your book on there or not. Same thing with social media and all of that, right? And your own space is going to be things like your email list, right? A website, a blog you own, a community you own, right? Now, the key to understand here, the key thing to understand that's really, really important and easy to overlook is for owned, you control the environment, okay? You are the one who gets to dictate. There's no algorithm, okay? There's no frequency that you don't get to control. So for example, like a social media post on LinkedIn, I can't control who gets to see it. I don't get to control who else shows up in their inbox or whatever, right? I know that's kind of a weird example, but I'll explain what I mean. So when you control the environment, I get to choose every day when I want to send my email. And if it gets delivered or not, of course, there's like, other things, spam filters and all that kind of stuff for your emails getting delivered. But in general, right, I get to control when I send it, who I send my emails to. Same thing with my website and my blog. I can control what's on it. I can control what I post on my blog, when I post it. There's no algorithm that's dictating who sees it and who doesn't. Like if you go to my blog, you see my content. There's no algorithm showing somebody else. And same thing with the community. Now, I know some of you might be thinking is, well, technically I'm paying for a community or I'm paying for a website, right? But the difference here we got to look at, which we're going to get to in a second when we're talking about traffic, is there's a difference between owning and controlling the environment and traffic. So when you have traffic that's coming to your community, technically you don't own that, right? The only time you own the contact is when they join and then you get their email and you get their whatever, right? So there's a distinction there because like even for a website, technically, yes, I'm paying for the domain and I'm paying to host it. So do I really own it? Well, you do own it, right? Because there's no difference between, let me say it like this. With rented, I don't control who gets to see anything. I don't get to control where it goes. With all of these owned spaces, I can control what I post, make everyone gets the opportunity to see it. So in my community, if I do a post, there's no algorithm. It's my post. Everyone in the community gets to see it. Same thing with my email list. And that's why it's so important to understand. It's this part right here, controlling the environment versus, yes, technically you're still paying for some of these, right? Even an email list. Just because you have the emails, you still need a service provider to send it and you have to pay for that. But you still own the contact information and you still own what's said and who sees it. And that's what's so important. So I wouldn't be able to talk about this if I didn't talk about traffic as well. And so if you've ever heard of Russell Brunson, all right, he has this book called Traffic Secrets. He has this whole trilogy. It's .com secrets and expert secrets. So good, so good, especially if you're running like a solo business. And I know he's known as just, the funnel guy, but if you want to just understand basic principles of selling, persuasion, marketing, he's so good. But anyways, in this book, okay, Traffic Secrets, he talks about that there's 3 core types of traffic, okay? And this is why it's so important based off the rented and the owned. You'll see how it all plays together. So the first one is the traffic you control, right? So this is paid or purchased. So you can control the narrative or where they go. So this would be an ad. So let's say I run an ad on Meta or Facebook or Instagram, wherever, okay? If I run an ad, I get to control when they click the button where they go. So I can actually control the traffic, putting them through my funnel. Okay. So that's controlled. Now, if you look at social media, for example, yes, I can write a LinkedIn post and have a CTA that takes somebody somewhere. I can control that. But what I cannot control is who sees it, how many people see it, right? So for example, if I want 100 people to see my ad, I have to pay a certain amount. And I know if I pay that amount, 100 people will see it. I can control that. Social media, you can't control how many people see it. You also can't control who sees it, right? So that's the difference. So traffic you control. The second one is traffic you earn. In the book, he talks about this being the least important, and which is really important for us to understand because once again, when we're talking about this trap and the dangerous game, most solopreneurs realistically are focused only on this one, which is the least important. Social media, word of mouth, search engines, right? So you earn this through posting every day and getting followers or getting people to learn about you and build a brand. You word of mouth, right? You earn that. You crush it for a client of yours and then they tell people about it. Or search engines. So I'm posting in my blog all the time and then that's an owned asset. But if I'm relying on the search engine for traffic to it, well, now we kind of get into the same predicament where it's like I'm relying on this search engine to earn it for me. I need my SEO ranking and all that stuff, right? So this is the lowest leverage because you have to earn it and you don't get to even control the narrative as much as you would like to and the process. And then the third one, which is the most important in this book that he talks about, is traffic that you own. So this is email, messenger, right? Customer list. So for example, I use Go High Level for my business. And so when somebody joins or opts into something or somebody joins my community, let's say, and I could get their phone number and then their email and they could answer a couple questions. And so now when this person comes into my Go High Level, my customer list, I can see their phone number, their email, so I could text them or call them or email them directly, personally. Or the best part about, and this isn't an ad for Go High Level, by the way, just saying for me, the customer list is so important because I can see what emails they've opened, what links have they clicked in the emails. Like I can see everything that they're doing and I own that traffic and I know their behavior, right? And so that's why having people's emails and being able to message them through text or whatever and having this customer list is so important. So this is traffic that you own. So you can see how this traffic plays into the owned space because this traffic, all of this traffic, you want it all to go into something you own. Just like the rented space, you want everything to go into your owned space. So really important thing to understand. This is why obviously I'm doing this whole episode on it. And I think it's really, really important for solopreneurs especially to understand this because it's so easy to get caught up in playing the LinkedIn game and chasing the algorithm and chasing likes, trying to go viral, get a bunch of followers. But it doesn't mean anything if you're not driving them to a place that you own, okay? And I didn't even really start making any serious amount of money until I started doing this. So when I first got into LinkedIn like 4 years ago, I was, just trying to go viral, trying to get a bunch of followers, doing the thing. And then I heard about lead magnets and, I've told this story before, but essentially that's when I first started to see the power of it because people who've bought products or services from me the most have all been from an owned asset. So people from my community or people from my email list, right? It's pretty rare you just connect with someone on LinkedIn, DM them, and they pay you $4,000, $5,000. Just very rare, right? There's so much more into this. You can go watch past episodes that have talked about other, adjacent philosophies around this. But today I really want to talk about the owned versus rented trap and the philosophy behind it so you can understand it. And you can look at yourself honestly and just be like, okay, am I doing this? Do I have a place that I own? Am I focused too much on just the rented space? Because not everybody is going to lose their account like Dan did, but it's a good story for you to at least have in your mind to understand that any day you could lose your account and they don't have to tell you why, right? And so it's just really important to understand this rent versus own concept. And with that being said, that's all I got for you today. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in episode 9 tomorrow.